What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and in today's video, we're gonna recap the T1 and Hanwha Life match. We'll take a look at that. We're gonna take a look at my projections. Well, not projections. The way that I think it's gonna play out. And we're gonna do that because on Bet365 they released lines for stage of elimination. So first, before I start looking at those numbers, I want to do my bracket. I don't think there's reseeding, but we should check that. Main event. Obviously, T1 won. Yeah, there's no switch in the bracket, so we'll just start here, and I reserve the right to change my mind about certain matchups depending on what we see from teams in the future. But this is like a look ahead, and I want to know if I think that there's any advantage for making some of these bets now. I'm getting a little bit of a glare from the sunset, but that is okay. Or I guess I don't know if it's technically the sunset. But we have T1 advancing there. I said that in the video yesterday, and obviously that came true. The next match is RNG against EDG. We discussed that yesterday. Going into the analysis of this matchup, I thought that I would be on the RNG side because the line has essentially flipped from I'm assuming it flipped from being RNG as favorites before the World Championship started, and now EDG is listed as a slight favorite on the sportsbook. But I do think that EDG matches up well with RNG. Wow, that is a shocking D. EDG. I apologize. I apologize for the photosensitive viewers out there. That is a shocking. That's a shot. That's like that might be the worst handwriting in the history of handwriting. But let's take a look at Gen.G and C9. So the top lane problems that we've seen from Gen.G, I don't think they're going to matter much against C9. We need to know who is playing in the top lane because it'll help us figure out what we think about how the drafts are going to go. Because Birdall is going to make things more volatile, and Rascal would make things a little bit more straightforward. And it's like the concept of like killing off a game in soccer, where you just bring on extra defensive players and play more of like a possession style game. But yeah, that's just how I think of Rascal. Because while he can win, his job isn't to win his lane. His job is to go even and then contribute to the late game stuff. In the jungle, Clid and Blabber. I do think that Blabber has an advantage from a stylistic perspective. I think that he is more likely to play champions that will allow him to carry specifically. I think that Clid has had a good tournament. I think that Clid is a very highly skilled player with multiple seasons performing at a high level, and is just not the most popular player in the world because their playstyle isn't as flashy as some other junglers. But I think that from an ability to win matches, I think that I probably have a little bit more trust in Clid than I do in Blabber. In the mid lane, I think that BDD and Perks are both very good players. I think that BDD is a very good mid laner in an era where there are a lot of good Korean mid laners, so it's difficult to correctly appreciate BDD's talent level and how good he has been because he doesn't have as many accolades as players like Showmaker, Faker, Chovy. But he's definitely a very skilled player and is most likely better than Perks. The thing that Perks has going for him is that he's from the West, and his competition in terms of legacy are Western players, and I think that Perks is going to be remembered as one of the best players from the West in this era of League of Legends. So I think from a draft perspective, I don't know. I don't know if I really want either player playing TF or anything like that. I'm not sure. I think one of them will probably adapt and bring it into their like their champion pools as like an integral part of what they're trying to do in the draft. We should take a look at that actually. I'm gonna leave those on the screen. Don't got time for that. We got Syndra, Azir, Yone. And they've been banning TF. So if C9 has played TF at all, it's going to get banned. Although I could see the argument for not banning it, since you're taking away some of the playmaking upside and some of the damage from a player like Perkz. It could be a good strategic move. So they've been banning it as well. Perkz played it in the second game. And then Perkz played it against Damwon. So I think that's a trap for C9. I think that's a mistake if they end up going that direction again. Which makes me a little bit more afraid of the draft phase for this. And then last but not least, in the bot lane, we have Ruler against Zven. Like, that is a joke. Like, Ruler is so much better than Zven. And I think that, you know, when we take a look at the match from today, I'm not saying that like this justifies my opinions from before the tournament started, but this is what happens when like you get a hard carry against a utility AD carry, and the utility carry doesn't get a large lead in the early game and isn't able to punish the late game player. If you're not going to actively attack Aphelios in the early game, you deserve to lose the game. So part of that comes down to drafting. Part of that comes down to building team compositions that can deal with Aphelios correctly. And, of course, it has to do with execution in the game. Because, like, you might be able to make the argument that they had enough tools to shut down the Aphelios. They just didn't play proactively enough to do it. These games were a little bit slow, which isn't, like, a negative. It's just the reality. So with T1, like, moving forward, they're going to be playing Aphelios most likely. So that's going to put a big, not restriction, it's going to make a big impact on the drafting. So I think that's a benefit for Gen G as well. I think that Gen G is the team that's much more likely to play around their bot lane. So unless C9 can stomp topside, I just don't see them really winning. I know it's like a chalky answer, but I think that Gen G will win. I cannot bet on Gen G because I'm in New Jersey, but that's my answer. Then in the last matchup, we have Damwon against Mad Lions. I'm not a Mad Lions fan. Everybody knows that. I appreciate, what they've done and how they've been able to play at a relatively high level, and I like their play style. I think it's a good play style. The problem is that they're up against Damwon, and Damwon has a better top laner. Damwon has a better jungler. Damwon has a better mid laner, and Damwon's bot lane has been playing very well at this tournament. They've brought in additional champions into the fold, which could allow them to go toe-to-toe with Mad Lions in a team fighting situation, because, well, for multiple reasons. They have shown that they can play the Draven. I know it was against Hans Sama, so even if it's not necessarily something they want to do on their own, they felt like they could pivot to it in a draft, and they had enough prep to pull it off on stage. So if Mad Lions is playing like a utility AD carry, you can bring Draven down there, and he's going to be stronger than them at a lot of different points in the game. If Mad Lions decides to play a late game carry, they can play the Draven. They can punish that by using Draven. And then if Mad Lions ends up picking utility AD carry, Damwon could always go the Aphelios route as well, which is something I don't think many people anticipated coming into Worlds, but I think a lot of people who pay attention to like the material side of League of Legends and like the itemization of different champions, I think that you could see that Aphelios had a very good chance to be a strong champion at Worlds. Because it goes right in line with teams playing a little bit more conservative. They're less likely to punish an early game champion because that increases the variance of the game. So that's just another reason to be happy with Damwon. So I would say that Damwon wins that one. Then we have EDG against Gen.G. So in the top lane, I think that I do think that Flandre is good enough to beat Rascal or Birdall, but I don't think that it's a large enough advantage to completely flip a matchup. I think that Jai Jai against Clid, I think that Jai Jai, this is the kind of matchup where we will figure out if he is overrated, because if people are out there saying like, oh, Jai Jai is so much better than Clid, then you'll know that he's overrated. I think that you could make the argument that there's not a huge difference between the two players in terms of ability, but stylistically, Jai Jai has played a bloodier playstyle. People just generally like that more. So I could see that skewing people's opinions a decent amount. But let's take a look at the champions. This is from the second day of the knockout round. So Talon. Talon's a good pick. We get another Talon. And then we get a Xin Zhao. So he'll probably have the advantage in champion pool because of that. Uh-oh. There we go. Lee Sin, Taliyah. Lee Sin, Taliyah, Jarvan, Olaf. So the Jarvan is somewhat concerning. The Lee Sin is good because that's going to put additional pressure on the draft. I think that EDG could just as easily play it. So that's not an advantage for Gen.G, but you can see how stylistically they have different champions they're kind of gravitating towards. Clids are more, helping engage, helping provide additional utility for the rest of the team, because Lee Sin has, shielding, has good engage ability, playmaking upside. Jarvan is a good engage option, will often force flashes from carries. But Jarvan has been punished pretty often at Worlds by champions that just do more. So that's fine. In the mid lane, BDD against Scout. Let's take a look at the champions again. So BDD did look good on this day. The Zoe game was good. The Syndra game was good. BDD, Zoe, Syndra, Azir game, Yone game. So a lot of different champions. I don't see a huge difference from a talent perspective here. These are I think in my video yesterday, I said it was like Showmaker, Chovy, Faker. And then right below them were Scout and BDD. I think that we'll most likely have pretty generic mid lane matchups where there's not a huge advantage going to either side. And then it just comes down to team fighting ability, communication, grouping correctly around objectives, utilizing their priority in lane to go to side lanes. I don't think that we're going to see a lot of 1v1s in the mid lane or anything like that. Unless there's a huge exploitation of draft where one team is being somewhat lazy and then gets counterpicked hard. And then in the bot lane, this is going to be probably my favorite bot lane matchup. I think that Viper and Ruler are the two best AD carries at Worlds. Other players have the the upside of rivaling them, especially if Gumayusi is going to be like that kind of carry, like a hardcore late game carry on Aphelios all the time. That could be pretty exciting to see that evolution. But Viper and Ruler, it'll be fun. It'll be funny to see which one of them or which team decides. We can play a lot of these late game champions, but we want to be the team taking a more aggressive approach to the early game. Get one of our players onto, like Misfortune, and we'll just try to punish the landing phase a little bit. So EDG has Aphelios. They've been willing to go. EDG has played MF multiple times. DFM banned out a lot of these late game carries. They were happy to go with Aphelios when they were given it. T1 took the Aphelios. So I'm guessing that this draft was like pick Yuumi, pick Aphelios and TF. Then it was pick MF and Talon, and then 4-5 Jace Rise. That's fine. It's really tough to say that one of these teams has a huge advantage in the bot lane. It's a very close match. I'm not sure what the line is going to be listed at, and I'm not going to be able to bet on it. I think that EDG will most likely be the favorite because they will have beaten RNG, and Gen.G will be up against C9. So I think that I would rather say Gen.G because we'll get additional value on them, and then that would mean that EDG loses here. And then T1 against Damwon. Same thing. I think that we want T1 to win. Like from a betting perspective, we will get more value for our money if T1 wins this round. So again, because of the other bet we're trying to make, we would try to do. We'll make a bet probably on Damwon Kia getting eliminated in the semifinals, and EDG getting eliminated in the semifinals, and then Gen.G against T1. Gen.G against T1. I think T1 probably just wins that. T1 has the advantage in the top lane. T1 has a stylistic advantage in the jungle. I think that they have a slight advantage in the mid lane, but I'm willing to say that one's even. And then in the bot lane, I think Gen.G has the advantage, but Gumayusi has the opportunity to, prove to everyone he can play up to that level. But in that scenario, I think that T1 would most likely pivot. Aphelios would be an extremely important champion in that matchup, and I think that T1 is the one who is more likely to pivot off of it, play a utility AD carry, and be more aggressive in the early game. So that is a benefit for T1 as well. So I would say that T1 probably wins, which means Gen.G comes in second. Oh. And then T1 is your champion. And honestly, if it's Gen.G versus T1 in the finals, it's a complete emotional free roll, because that means that either T1 wins and I'm happy, or Gen.G wins, and my video from before World started where I said Gen.G will win the World Championship will look good. So either way, I'll be very happy with that. So let's take a look at the different numbers that are being offered for this. So Damwon, we want to make Damwon lose in the semifinals, so that's plus 225. We want EDG to lose in the semifinals, that's plus 450. That's pretty good. We want Gen.G. I'm not going to be able to make this bet because of where I live, but I would say make them the runner-up. Mad Lions, you can just say the quarterfinals, but I'm not betting $1,200 to, I'm not betting $1,200 to win 100. And also, I'm not going to be able to bet that because actually, I might be able to bet that. We'll see. And then RNG losing in the quarterfinals is minus 138 because that's the money line for EDG to win. And then T1 as the winners is plus 350 at this point. That's pretty bad for us. And then them getting C9 getting knocked out in the quarterfinals minus 350 because that's the money line. Okay. So that's basically it. I'm pretty excited for the rest of the knockout stage. I do think that the hard carry teams, the teams with the better 80 carries, have a good chance to use that edge in these drafts, because a lot of the trades that happen in like the mid lane and the jungle aren't like game-winning differences a lot of the time. Top lane, we've seen, the more aggressive side has been paid off a lot of the time, because due to the jungle mid laner being willing to like give additional resources to top lane, help out the top laner, we see top lane advantages being pretty important. And that should help T1. It's not going to help them specifically against Damwon, but it could theoretically help a decent amount against Gen.G. But that's it. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you. Actually, yeah, I'll talk to you later.